Hey, come and join us. This is Mitchell Levy, global credibility expert, and we're at the funnest time of my day, my week, is when I get to talk to some super cool, super special human about their values. And so the show's Leaders Living Their Values. Tune into it. And today we have Scott Gillespie. And Scott, welcome. So happy to have you here.
Oh gosh, thank you, Mitch. I really appreciate you having me. It's a snowy day up here in Maine, so it's nice to have a friendly face to talk to.
versus some sort of white level. Hey, so the audience knows who you are,
Okay.
so they get to know you and see you. Who are you?
Oh my gosh, that question could be answered on so many levels. You know, my first reaction when I hear that is, I'm a coach, right? I spend my life guiding, coaching, helping, improving other people's lives, and most of that time is spent in my fitness center, health club, Saco Sport and Fitness. I have a staff of about 50, about a dozen direct reports. But I also work in roundtable scenarios, board settings, and I enjoy sharing content and helping people become better versions of themselves. And when I can support that mission, it's very fulfilling to me.
Okay, I'm going to say I love all that. And it's a great response. And what does that mean for you? What have you done for you, like in terms of you being the coach? Like coaches are sometimes hard to take coaching of them for themselves. How have you turned into a better version, or the best? Best isn't the right word because we always can learn. How have you turned into the person you are today?
Oh, wow. You know, at different times in my life, I probably would answer this very differently. I think today I think about how we spend our time and the influence of that time. And as we age, I find myself needing to spend more time on myself, from a fitness, from a health, from a cognitive development perspective. And I think of it a lot, Mitchell, like I think about being on an airplane that's going down. You have to put on your own oxygen mask before you help the people beside you. And I see so many people who spend their careers helping other folks' lives, yet they don't take care of themselves. And there comes this point where they no longer have the energy, the capacity, or the time to care for others. So it starts by taking care of myself. And then the next version is surrounding myself with people who I admire, who I learn from. I'm so lucky to have a team at my fitness center of wonderful people who make me feel inadequate all the time because of how special they are. But I also seek out special people in my industry, in my community, and on many of these boards that I serve on, who have excelled far beyond what I have done in their impacts on people's lives. And I try and spend as much time as I can learning from them.
I've seen that. I loved your active participation in the outside communities, and we can explore that. I still want to dive a little bit have you had in your lifetime or
Oh
in?
my gosh, at our club, well over 10,000. It's probably closer to 15 by now. We serve about 3,000 people at any given time. Our industry is famous for having a relatively high attrition rate, near 40%. We are a little better than that in the about a third, we're about 33% attrition. So in the course of a year, we will serve somewhere in the neighborhood of 4,000 people.
That's amazing, and we could dive into there. So you've been of service to others, and then a lot of people who have that heart that you have, and not only have you been of service to others in the health club, but also to the local community and to the broader community. And one of the things that many servant leaders, by the way, makes you credible as the type of servant leader you are. Many servant leaders forget about the most important person to serve, which is serving yourself. So when did you wake up to that?
I think it's always been inherent in me as someone who lives in the health and fitness world. I have been preaching that people will live better, happier, more vital lives if they care for themselves. So I think that is a deep down value that I've had forever. But I think it has become much more prevalent as I age. I'm 60 years old. The body doesn't do what it used to do. The sleep requirements have changed, and what I eat has changed dramatically. And I find that those things are giving me more energy. They're allowing me to engage people in a more productive way. So I think it's a combination of the values, the people I surround myself with who live similarly to the way I do, and an acknowledgement that I'm not 20 anymore, and I need to take a little bit better care of myself.
Mm. So I think that's definitely an important thing people don't. Is there, I'm going to say, I hear you. And when you wake up in the morning or when you go to sleep at night, is there a particular routine that you focus on that encourage you to think about you? This sounds bad because I want to say for a servant leader, sometimes we have to force ourselves to think about us first. So is there something you do to make that to wake up to
Yeah,
that recognition?
there is, and this is something that's evolved. It really crystallized over the pandemic. So life was great, right? Pre-pandemic, I'd had a business for 27 years. It had been growing at a nice gradual rate each year. The consulting business has been wonderful. My ability to serve on boards and do the other things that I want to do has all been great. And then the pandemic hits and the rug gets pulled out from underneath you, and your revenues go to zero in a day. And now you don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, right? It's a true crisis. And now I'm responsible for 65 other lives who I employ without any revenue to help support them. And then you enter stress mode. And so that was a time of reflection. I'm going to say fortunate that I've had some similar crisis experiences in the past. And at the time, I wouldn't tell you I was fortunate. But today I will tell you I was, because of the lessons they taught me on how to handle crisis management and coming up with a playbook to deal with it. Because it can be overwhelming when it is such a reach from your day-to-day operations or the typical decisions you have to make. But one of the things that evolved for me, to answer your question, was when I get up, and I get up relatively early, and I have a cup of coffee and I sit, I will take that time to reflect on a couple things. The first is to reflect on what I am truly thankful for, and what are all the good things that are in my life, and what abundance do I have? And that helps me understand that, my gosh, I am in a wonderful place. I am so blessed and fortunate, and I truly do have resources, and I do have assets that I can use if I take the time and make the decisions to work on them. And then the next series of thoughts, okay, what are the priorities for today? And that reflection on abundance and reflection on appreciation gives me energy. And it takes away the fear, and it takes away the doubt and anxiety, which is the instant reaction to crisis. And so managing that, and that habit, by the way, has maintained. I do that every day now.
Do you tell me about it? Like, is there a series of things you do, or particular like?
It is not as structured as I think some people might recommend. I think, you know, in the old day, they diagnose it now as ADD. Back in my day, it was just called he was a very active child. But I am absolutely one of those people who look at the shiny object. And I bounce around quite frequently and tend to make decisions quickly. And I've had to work on that and become much more disciplined. But in my morning routine, it's usually some combination of family, business, finances, extended family, friends, community. I will go through the list of all the things that are happening in my life and the things that I've done and accomplished and can be thankful for and appreciative of and proud of, to give me energy. And I don't do all those things every morning. But usually by the end of a week, I will have brought all those thoughts in and kind of kept things in perspective.
I just got this wave of like, God, that sounds so cool. It's sort of like, so maybe you should call it Appreciation Saturday.
You know, it's a reflection. I think some people might call it a very weak form of meditation. I don't see it as a meditation, but I think of it as a reflection, an appreciation, and a reset every morning of the way life can and should be, as opposed to what is the crisis of the last moment that I need to wrap myself up in. And it helps me deal with those crises, I think, in a much more efficient way.
I love that. And so one of the things that when we spoke in our green room, which was, you know, a couple months ago, one of the things we talked about is when the pandemic hit and your revenue went to zero, you still kept things moving and were able to still be of service to your customer base, which they also were in panic mode. And so what did you do? How were you of service?
Well, I think the role we play in people's lives is to support healthy living. And I think on the most narrow scale, we do that by helping people get fit. But I think there's a broader scale to it. I think we provide community. I think we provide a sense of control where people can do things to feel better about themselves and to be better, to be healthier. And so I needed to lay off the vast majority of people. And once it became clear that the government was going to supply unemployment for anybody who's laid off during the pandemic, and I felt much better about my staff earning an income. And I kept what we considered a tiger team, 5 key staff people who met every day virtually. And we brainstormed, and I'll give you a couple examples. The first one I laugh about, we have been wanting to stream our group exercise classes for 3 years. People keep saying, wouldn't it be great if I could just stay home and take my class instead of having to drive in? How about on a snow day when you have to cancel? Wouldn't it be great if we could just do a Zoom class instead? And we said, yeah, that's a fantastic idea. We'll work on it. And we worked on it. And we worked on it. And it never happened. And then the pandemic happened. And I kid you not, 8 days later, we were streaming live group fitness. You know, crisis breeds speed of decision-making and problem solving. And so we were, and we serve, to put it in perspective for those who are familiar with gyms, the average gym has 10-ish% of their members take classes. In our club, we think group exercise is incredibly important because it's fun. It takes away thought process. It provides content, music, direction, community, competition. And so it's a great way for exercisers to find a routine that is easy to follow. So we are firm believers in group activities. And it represented about 40% of our visits. So I kid you not, 8 days later, we're streaming group exercise classes from our instructors' living rooms, their basements, garages, wherever they would do it. And we created a fee structure for people to log in. And so we were able to generate revenues. Another way we do it, we also employ 12 personal trainers, registered dietitians who we bill insurance for their services, because we do believe that nutrition is at least 50% of the equation when it comes to living healthy and changing your body, whether that's to move better, to feel better, or to look better. And we were able to do telemedicine. So still we're able to have our dietitians work with people via Zoom and bill insurance for those. Our personal trainers were still able to do one-on-one sessions, teaching people to lift up water bottles and whatever they had in their house that could be used as a fitness amenity. And so we were able to, in the course of about 2 weeks, start generating revenues and to be able to find income for our trainers and some of our practitioners. So it was a wonderful exercise in quick decision making, fast problem solving, and putting my team to work and being innovative. And we weren't the only club to do it. This happened all over the country, but that's how we handled it.
Mm. Now, let's dive a little bit into not all healthcare facilities focus on the complete human. And that's part of the thing that I was hearing you say is you know, you need the physical body, you need the nutritional body. Now, let's cover that, and then you could roll that into the mental body.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's start with the nutrition piece because I think that's what you're asking, and I'll use a couple examples. Exercise is a fantastic intervention if you want to change your body, right? It helps you move better. It helps you when you become fit. It affects every other operational system in your body: cardiovascular, respiratory, endocrine, immune, pulmonary, skin, stress. All those systems get better if you exercise regularly. The challenge is it takes a long time to see results from regular exercise. You don't see immediate physical results overnight. You do feel emotional and there's some bodily changes, but it takes a while. And many people have goals of changing how their body appears. And so if they don't see the waist drop 5 inches in 2 days, there's a frustration level. Now we know that if we can add proper nutrition and change some basic eating habits, and I'll go on a side note here, our educational system does a relatively poor job of teaching lifestyle habits. And if they did a better job at teaching lifestyle habits, our healthcare system would not be in the conundrum it's in. So I'll stop that sideline because that's 2-hour talk. Okay, but back to nutrition. If we add nutrition, then we can accelerate those results. And if we accelerate the results that people see and how their body changes, they will stick with the exercise piece also better. So that's one example. And whether that is weight loss or whether it is moving better or improving your fasting blood glucose or your cholesterol or your blood pressure or your BMI, all wonderful things. I'll give you another example a lot of people never even think about. So in the past 10 years, this concept of anti-inflammatory eating has become somewhat popular. It's something I was an exercise physiologist and I knew nothing about. And I had a gentleman stop by my office one day and he just peeked his head in and he said, "Thank you." And I said, "Gosh, that's awful nice. For what?" He says, "For that 90-day program I just went through, which is it's diet, it's exercise, it's behavior change, it's stress management." He says, "It's really changed my life." I said, "Well, what has it done for you?" He says, "Well, I can hike again. I used to love hiking and I couldn't hike anymore." And I said, "Wow, that's great. Is that because you're stronger or because you lost some weight?" Or he says, "No, it's the anti-inflammatory eating. My joints don't hurt anymore." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I was eating so many processed foods and so much sugar, which exacerbates inflammation throughout our bodies, that my joints were so painful, I couldn't hike anymore. And now that I'm on this anti-inflammatory eating plan, my joints don't hurt and I can hike again." Now, there was 2 benefits there. The first was it was wonderful to hear his story. It's great when members share their successes with you. But the second was, for the past 2 or 3 years before that, I had been getting out of bed every morning, stepping on the floor and feeling knives stick through my ankles every time I took my first few steps because my joints were inflamed and they were bothering me. And I always thought it was too many miles, too many mountains, too many moguls. And so I just thought it was wear and tear. And I said, "Wait a minute, what are you talking about, anti-inflammatory eating?" And he told me a little bit. And I kid you not, I ran to my dietitian's office. I asked her the question about anti-inflammatory eating. We talked for 10 minutes about what I'm eating. That day, I stopped eating sugar and processed grains. And in 2 weeks, my joints didn't hurt. And that was 3 years ago. And so now I can be more active than I ever was. And now I'm preaching the anti-inflammatory benefit of, which is one of many benefits of exercise. We all have one reason why we want to do it, but there's so many other ways it and proper eating can improve our lives.
All right. So, by the way, love that. And so now let's talk about mental.
Yeah.
And because part of it, it's very interesting to me. It's when you're looking at somebody's overall health, yes, we need to work out, and yes, we need to eat right. And then also we need to be sort of, you even mentioned it, the abundance mentality versus a scarcity mentality. And now I don't necessarily look at my gym as a place to get that sort of consumption or feeding. That's not the place where I go for data on that.
Right.
How do you do that, or what do you do, or what's coming up? What are you thinking about?
So massive topic, Mitchell. I serve on our local hospital strategic planning board, and I will share that they and most hospitals around the country, their behavioral health units right now are overwhelmed, much more so than the COVID units ever were. They literally don't have the bandwidth to handle the demand. And the consensus is that stems from a few different things relative to the pandemic. Number one, isolation. If I'm not with other people for extended periods of time, isolation breeds a form of depression. I feel alone. I don't feel connected to this community. Number two, during the pandemic, those social interventions used that locked us all down changed a lot of behaviors. One behavior was we started eating more. One behavior was we stopped moving as much as we used to because we're all stuck in our house. And add to that, and I don't know about you, but my wine cellar took a little bit of a dent during the pandemic, and a lot of people may have imbibed a little bit more than they normally did. Add to that the stress of and the fear of, am I going to get it? What's going to happen to me, my friends, my relatives? And that fear is a form of PTSD. And you add all that up, and all of a sudden we have significant mental health challenges that a lot of people are facing. And a lot of folks just didn't have the resilience, skills, or support systems to be able to manage that. I'm not claiming that the health club industry can fix all of that, but I know there's two things that we can. Number one, exercise absolutely reduces stress. So if you think about the foundational reason we have a stress response system, it stems from hundreds of thousands or millions of years ago when we had to run from a tiger, fight for a competitor, build something, move, climb a tree, do whatever we had to do to survive. And many of those activities were stressful and they were in the moment. I'm going to die if I don't survive this encounter. The stress response gives you energy. It increases your blood pressure. It gives you increased muscular capacity. It decreases your pain threshold. And in today's world, we don't get a lot of that. We get a lot of stresses at work, and we get a lot of increased blood pressure and a lot of decreased pain and a lot of increased ability, but we never expend it. We never get rid of it. And so it adds up over time. And that's why we see that's one of the reasons we see high blood pressure become such an issue. Heart disease becomes such an issue. When you exercise at a relatively high intense level, you release all that. And I kid you not, I take my blood pressure every morning. And if I've exercised the day before, it's nice and low. And if I didn't, it's not that low. And it's no longer anecdotal. It's the data tells me that. And physicians tell me that all the time. So that's one thing exercise does, is it releases stress. It also, by the way, releases endorphins, which make you feel good. So now we're not just getting rid of the bad stuff, but we're bringing in good stuff. But there's another piece to it, which is in a fitness center, there is a community of like-minded people. And whether you actually interact with that guy next to you or that woman on the bike to your left or right, you still have this sense of community because I'm with other people doing things to make myself better. They're doing the same things, and we share a value system. And so just to be in that environment, to gain energy from those people is valuable. And so two of the things and the initiatives that we're trying to promote right now is this concept of get back on the horse. Right? It's for a lot of people who stopped exercising altogether. It's not too late. It's a perfect time to get going and start that routine again. But the other is to rejoin a community of people who are like you, doing the same thing you're doing for the same reasons.
Dude, that is so elegantly said. And yeah, it's very powerful to be. So let's do behind the scenes. Okay. This is a leader living their values. This is somebody who has the intent and commitment to do the right thing. This is somebody who has both internal and external integrity on the importance of us. And in sharing a educational message also is encouraging you. If you're local, you should join Scott's gym. If you are not actively in part of your gym, you should be joining a gym. It's just one of those things that you're hearing him talk, you feel that level of comfort, of truth, from a perspective of being of a service to somebody else, and ultimately landing in and presenting a solution that gets to your why. I mean, this is exactly the way we, as a leader living their value, you're executing, you're demonstrating your values.
Oh gosh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you for the comment about joining the local gym. I want to share. I want to build on that comment a little bit, because I became aware, gosh, 10 plus years ago. I was serving on our industry's board of directors, our trade association's board of directors, and we got to see the industry big data, and it's fascinating data to see what is the turnover rate of an industry. Every industry tracks attrition, consumer loyalty, and customer engagement. And ours, quite frankly, is not great. We lose 30 to 40% of our membership as an industry each year. And that really troubled me. I'm like, think about that for a minute. We serve, by the way, 20% of the American population. So there's 300 plus million people in the US. The health club industry serves 60 plus million. And with a third turnover ratio, that means we're losing 20 million people a year. They've joined our club and it didn't work out. Now, I grant that 10 to 15% of these people go from Albuquerque to Cincinnati, or they go from Club A to Club B, but the vast majority simply didn't get what they came for. And to me, that is a massive failure and a huge opportunity that we have to evolve and to change. The fitness industry was created by fit people. We're really, really good at helping fit people get and stay fit. Okay. Yet that only represents 20% of the American population. There's a massive amount of people out there who want to be healthy. They want to be fit, yet the way we deliver our services today is not meeting their need. And so I'm a strong believer that our industry needs to evolve. We need to get better. We need to add programming, behavior change, understanding, support systems, motivation, inspiration, guidance, education, things that will help that. And I don't think we're ever going to reach everybody, but a much larger percentage of people succeed. And I geeked out one day and did the math. So if we're losing like 20 million people a year and 10% are going to another club, that means we lost 17-ish million people a year. Well, if you go back 10 years and you factor in our market penetration and our industry's attrition rate in each year, which I did, over 10 years, we lost 150 million people who we didn't give them what they wanted. That's almost half of the people in America. And to me, that's a massive market of people who prove they want what we have, but we just didn't give it to them in a way they could consume. So how can we evolve our product? So the evolution of the thought or the conversation we have is I use my club as a test kitchen. I used to have other clubs, bought them and sold them, didn't like it. I like to have one and be a big player in a community and really contribute to that community. But it also gives me the ability to kind of turn on a dime. We get to try programming, guidance systems to put people into programming. And when they really work, then I will go to industry conventions and share those concepts. And I act as a consultant and I'm hired by clubs all over the country who help launch some of those programs and some of those guidance systems to help new members find the support systems they need to succeed. Because I sadly believe the simple act of joining a fitness center is not going to get you fit. Let me stop for a minute and say that again. The simple act of joining a fitness center is not going to get an unhealthy, unfit, uneducated fitness person fit. It almost never works. They need some kind of guidance or support system. And that's where we've spent all our time in our club trying to get better and better at that. And now I want to share that in my true mission is helping our industry serve more people nationally.
Scott, if somebody's watching this, a fitness expert, somebody running a gym, somebody maybe local, how best should people be reaching out to you?
So email is, I'm an email guy. I sadly don't live a lot on social media. I do spend some time on LinkedIn, which is SC Gillespie. But my email is Scott, SCOTT, at SACO, which is Saco, the name of the town I'm in, sacofitness.com. So Scott at sacofitness.com.
Awesome. Thank you. So let me ask you two last questions. Based on how this conversation went, is there a particular question that you would have wanted me to ask, or is there a particular area that you want to focus on?
Oh gosh. Yeah. Well, I would ask, how did I end up this way? What were the influences in my life that kind of guided me down this path? And some of them were I had no control over. I was a lucky victim of being in a scenario, and many of them I actively sought out. And so I think that would be the question I would ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask you that question. So, Scott, how did you get to
I'll
where
give it a
you
go.
are?
I'll
Okay,
give it
my
a go.
last question. How did you get to where you are?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, too funny.
I mean, by the way, I love a lucky victim of circumstances. That was like a very cool.
We are a combination of things. Carol Dweck wrote a wonderful book called Mindset, which talks about the two general thought processes that people have. Mindset A is, I am a victim of my life. I was born with everything I'm going to get, and my lot in life is what I have to accept. And I'm overstating it a little bit for emphasis. But the other is a growth mindset, which is, I welcome and accept failure. I know I can be more if I seek it out and grow. But the lucky victim is, I've had some wonderful people in my life who set a good standard. My parents, by the way, I couldn't have been luckier and had two more different people. My father was the head of the music department at a big university. And he was the guy that walked into a room, whether it was a party, a class that he taught, or a session that he was going to do as a conductor, and the whole room went, "Hey, Alan." He was lovable. He was likable. He truly, as a conductor, he did it more for the participants in the orchestra than he did for the audience. So that was his leadership lesson to me. And he showed up at the university on day one, and he was handed 40 people at a university of 20,000 people. Said, "We need a marching band for the football team." And he literally went and knocked door to door through all the dorms and ended up building one of the greatest marching bands in the country, and traveled all over the world. So he was a wonderful, wonderful role model. My mother was the antithesis of that. She was not what I think most people would call outwardly friendly. In fact, she was driven. And in the 60s and 70s, when she was a professor at a university and ended up the dean of a college, she would tell you that she had to be a bitch to get there. She had to, in a male-dominated world, become unfriendly and demanding and direct. And I learned this concept of direct conversation from her, and the drive that she had to overcome massive obstacles and barriers. So those were two of the lucky turns of the draw. I think the people that I've met in the fitness industry are inherently giving people. I think if I had grown up in the car sales industry, I might be a different guy, right? Or in the insurance sales industry. But in the fitness industry, we inherently want to help people. And so I've had mentor after mentor after mentor, and colleague after colleague after colleague who think this way. And it can't help but bleed out into me.
Oh, that is so cool. What a great note to end on. So I guess for those who are looking for the right industry to end up in, pick one that inherently produces good people. Like I have a friend who was part of Wall Street and got out because he didn't like who he was becoming or who he became.
Yeah.
And so fitness industry, not a bad place to be. Scott, thank you so much for living out loud, sharing your thoughts, and even the way you paid tribute and homage to your parents was so beautiful. Thank you so much for coming up and sharing who you are today.
Mitchell, thank you for having me. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. It was a lot of fun.
Me too. And listen, if you're still here, guys, this is time to click on the like button, share with your friends. It's to spread some cred dust. That aha moment that really resonated with you, I think you should share it on social. It may even be something you write down in a sticky pad that you actually live by on a day-to-day basis. I'm excited to have you here. Please respect over to Scott Gillespie, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Leaders Living Their Values. Take care, everyone. Bye now.